All righty.
Hey,
Hello.
Julie.
I say good morning because it's morning for us when we generally
Yeah.
speaking when we record. So good
Yes, it
morning.
is.
Um,
Good
we're
morning. Good morning.
yeah, we're very fallish today. We were just commenting about our fall colors and
Yeah. Don't you love Julie's cinnamon, warm, cozy sweater? I love that sweater on her. It's
thank you.
beautiful.
And Tammy's background. So we're in sync.
You
We're
would look really good in front of this
I know.
background. I mean,
Actually I'll probably
actually,
blend in with it. So
I know.
um before we start, and there's a couple of things. Our one of Glenda asked, I think it was, oh no, it was Janae, asked us to explain how we came to do the work that we do. But before we do that, so I gave a little out there prediction because it was a drop in for me pre-election. And the whole thing was touch and go while I was watching. I don't want to discuss the whole election results because their prediction, their drop in information was about uh, that the governor's race in Arizona. And I know we need to introduce ourselves. We'll get to that in a minute.
Oh,
So
yeah. No
hang on.
problem. Go for
So
it.
it was about the governor's race between Kari Lake and Katie Hobbs, and that it was just touch and go for a long time. But before that, and I wrote it down, and I even put it on my YouTube. Well, I put it out last time in our YouTube, and I put it on my Facebook page. Um, whenever we did that last, whenever we did that last, I don't remember when it was, but it was pre-election, and it was pre-result. It was it was pre before any of that, and how they said that Katie Hobbs was going to win. And then as an afterthought, they said win big. Well, now win big is obviously a perspective, right? And relative, it means different things to different people. Um, so my understanding is that Katie Hobbs won over an election denier, Kari Lake, by just under about 20,000 votes, which is significant. It is not, questionable, although I'm sure some people will question it. So I just I'm saying all this because while I get drop-in information and Tammy gets drop-in information, and maybe Tammy, you're better about sharing it than I am. I have been reluctant to do that, and I'm going to start doing that a little bit more now. So um, and gee, starting with a big thing about an election result.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, because that's what's neat about drop-ins. That's why we say pay attention to, things that you get in very clearly, like, where'd that come from? Or just a strong sense about something because, you know, it, and why it's interesting, isn't it, Julie? Because we think like, why necessarily do they tell us things like that? I've had some really funny ones that I'm like, really aren't super significant, depending, right?
Right.
Not saying that one isn't, but I'm just saying, um, but for some reason, well, what I'm even just getting right now on that is because a reminder that we're talked to quite often, spirit is around us, and so we're just having moments of real clarity is what they're saying. And sometimes maybe that's why it can be something that it seems like, okay, that's kind of funny, I'll keep it in mind, but it just comes in really clear. And maybe they squeezed it in that one little you were just like super open to hear it loud and clear, and so they got that message through. But anyway, it's a lot of fun. So that's great. That's really neat.
You're 100% right. They are, thanks. They are just sometimes just out of the blue. I remember, and I probably told the story dozens of times, but I mean, how random they are is like I was driving down the street one day. I remember I was getting onto the freeway and I heard, oh, we're going to have a really wet winter. And I'm like, okay, thanks for sharing that.
Thanks for that.
I mean, there wasn't anything on the radio that was having to do with
Yeah.
that. It was literally nothing. And which I find are the times that things come in the most. It's like with the whole election thing, I was literally walking from one room to the next with nothing on my mind. So I guess they figured something needed to be there.
Right.
So I think
Right.
that's how those things work. So just interesting. They can have nothing to do with anything.
Yeah. 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 It's really funny. It's really funny. I've had some of those.
So
Yeah.
back to who we are and how we got here. And so, Tammy, why don't you tell your story? And mine's fairly similar, so I'll chime in
Okay.
later. But
Well,
go
I'll just,
ahead.
yeah, we'll just introduce ourselves first and then we'll go to that question of Janae's. Thank you, Janae. From both of us, we love it. It's a great question. And, and it's always interesting to hear, isn't it? Like how people, get started in certain things, not even just what we do, but,
Yeah.
I always think about like the famous actors, like how did they start out, stuff like that. So it's really interesting. So I'm Tammy Langowski. I am an intuitive advisor to your questions. I do offer private sessions, and best to get me on my website, tammy'sintuitive.com. And I do have a contact form there. I'm on social media, on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Tammy's Intuitive Services for that, and Tammy's Channel Chats, another YouTube video. So start with that introduction. Let's go to you, Julie.
I am not on TikTok. I
Okay.
am loath to be on any social media, but I'm still on Facebook. Even though I have accounts on Instagram and Twitter, and I follow people on Twitter. Although that's imploding, I find it fascinating to watch.
Mhm.
Um, as they were just saying, I don't know if I got this right. They said about Twitter that it was almost meant to be this way, that it
Mm.
was going to implode or explode or okay, well maybe they'll tell us more about that later. Anyway, yeah, I can be contacted through my website. I am available for readings, and you book through my at this point in time. Things may change after the beginning of the year. I'm looking at some different ways of doing what I do and calendaring and all that stuff. So we'll see. But for now, yes, just contact me through my website to book a session. And in the meantime,
Yeah.
so how did you get started doing the work that you did, Tammy?
Okay.
That we do?
So yeah, I'll read Janae's question. Might as well just read it so it's
Mhm.
formally out there. And thank you again, Janae, for sending it in. She said, "Thank you, ladies. Can you please discuss how you both got started as a psychic? Like a story time on how you guys discovered your gift and what you did to strengthen them." So thank you for that question. And, Julie and I probably, we have a lot of info because we've been doing it for so long versus somebody who just kind of got started. So my story is that as a child, I always had interest in the paranormal. Now I know that, I mean, all kids do to some degree, but back then it was the scary movies and stuff like that, and I loved that stuff even as a kid. And then I noticed that as I got to understand about like astrology, learning some things about astrology, I was very proud of my sun sign and kind of explored that. And so there was an interest even then, that I'm saying now. As far as for me, I will go to this and then backtrack just a little bit, but really I started coming into what I do as far as being an intuitive and really opening up, being clairaudient and all that, like in my mid 20s, long time ago. And so, but probably, I don't have the story so much of the interest was there, but of the child who used to see grandpa when they were 4 or 5, kind of thing, which is really cool, mind you. It's just that I can remember. I didn't have that. I do remember about the age of 10 or so. This is when I lived in Germany for a few years, and I was in bed at night, and I was not asleep. Maybe I was getting tired, that lucid state. Maybe I wasn't dreaming, but I heard a very loud, it scared me. It was like Tammy, loud in my ear. And I mean, enough, how it is. You're a kid at night in the dark. And I'm like, what was that? My first thought was I kind of look over thinking, like, do my brother crawl in and try to scare me or something, but he was not there. It wasn't that. It was a real audible. Now I know what those are, but I mean, it was really audible. I never really found out. I think I've tried to ask about it. Honestly, I don't remember what I got on it, but there was either could have been my guide just letting me know that, hey, I'm here. Could have been a friend in spirit, somebody I've known. It could have been a passing by spirit who kind of knew, hey, this little girl's sensitive. She probably doesn't even know it yet, but I'm going to pop in. I'm going to pop in a hello or her name. So that I remember. Anyway, then fast forwarding back to really, I'd say my early 20s to mid 20s. I was working full time, had a friend who was interested in these kinds of things too. We started going to lectures back in the 80s. I always say there was like, a plethora of like mediums and people that would come around to lecture and things like that. Certainly in my area anyway. And so we go to some of those. I remember going to a psychic party of this same friend who had a psychic party at her house where a woman came in and was doing readings. And she had told me, Julie might have heard me say this story before, but she had told me while I was having the reading, she said, you're going to be doing what I'm doing. And so you better start getting your meditation in and learning, like protection, blah, 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 blah. And I just remember leaning towards her going, what? Like, what? But it didn't totally surprise me because I had a lot of interest in that. But still, she was spot on. She was spot on. She had no way of knowing that I would, that I would be doing it. And quite honestly, it wasn't because of her that I did it. In other words, I didn't take that information and run with it and then, oh my gosh, I got to do this. I really didn't do that. But she definitely picked up on it. So I did, though, eventually start taking meditation classes. And I did actually take some classes kind of with her. She did really informal ones. And worked at that kind of thing. So certainly meditation was the key. That's why I still say to anybody hoping to develop their clairaudience, their connections with guide spirit, I'm not saying it has to all be through meditation. I just think it's a good idea, but that's a whole thing. Other things. So then basically for me, another big moment was going on a trip with my girlfriend to Mazatlan. And again, we're talking mid 80s still. And I had a reading from a woman there who was actually from my area, but had moved to Mazatlan and was doing readings out of the hotel. And she was pretty, her name was out there, and she had done some really great predictions on things that came true and all that. Anyway, so she told me, she said, yeah, your guides are talking to you at a mile a minute. They're like so excited. Yeah, because you're finally connecting. She said, you need to go out there and start doing readings. Just do readings on anybody who is open to it and all that. So I'll tell you, she was one of my pivotal, one of those moments that really helped me build my confidence. And so I did it. Even on that trip, I started doing that and was getting things that made sense for people. So then it was a matter of practicing. Then I looked into psychic fairs, got involved with that a little bit. And basically then through my meditation classes, Berkeley Psychic Institute, I started going there, taking healing and meditation classes. And a lot of it was just practice. It was practice. I was in a really good place at that time to do that. I will say I was single. I was living by myself. I could have that peace and quiet to really delve into it, really. So timing is everything. And I think that was all for a reason as well. So then, I will say this too, that my guides started, it was different for me. I don't hear many intuitives talk about this, but for me, they started, let's see, automatic writing was big for me kind of then too. Obviously I did tarot as well, but I would allow them, because I would feel this surge of energy when I first had that big connection to source, to my guides. It was an incredible, 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 indescribable experience, as often intuitives will talk about when they've made that first connection. And it was, but I remember then because I would feel them so much in a surge of energy and all, I would allow them, nobody ever took me over, nothing like that. But I would allow them to shake my head yes or no to questions because I didn't hear them yet. And so, and on some automatic writing. Now, others were coming through that automatic writing. I really had to have other intuitives help me out with that. And that was, again, all about learning my protection and my boundaries and my space. Really important stuff. So, but they would start, they would shake their head, my head, yes, no, kind of to things. I remember asking him one time, am I ever going to be able to hear you? And honestly, I thought they were going to shake my head no, and they took my head and they shook it yes. And I was like, I mean, even as they're shaking, and I'm going like this, I'm going, whoa, really? No, I can't do that. And so, and mind you too, I have a lot of faith in God, not religiously speaking, but I always had a very strong faith in source. I get emotional even when I talk about it. I think, well, I've had past lifetimes in religious orders, so maybe that's part of it. But and it still stays with me.
I think we talked about that. We both have, and I think that
Yes. Yes, and it
we
does
are
have an
today.
effect for lifetime to lifetime. It really does. So anyway, so and I remember saying, the reason I brought that up is I remember saying to them, when you let me know you're here, I really wanted to meet my spirit guides. That was my quest then with meditation, all that, and protection, you know, please don't scare me. Please don't scare me, which now is laughable because they wouldn't do that. But when you're young and you're learning and all of that, and that's when they brought this indescribable love to me, and it was really incredible. So yeah, so I started just trusting. I read books like we all did back in the day, right? Read all these kinds of books that helped. It helped inform me what other people had gone through, how they did it, how they were learning. And over time and practice and meditation, my practices of meditation, knowing my energy and feeling good about that, I was able to start posing questions and hearing things and understanding clairaudience. While I had that experience at 10 of a booming audible, that can happen, and it still has happened to me, not often though, but usually it's the sound of your own thoughts, and you're learning to separate those and listen. So that was a journey of that, and practice, right? And that just grew and then grow and then building confidence, because wow, it was making sense to people. It was helping people, when I started doing this and everything. I initially did not charge for it. I was just doing some, which is what I still, when people ask me about getting started, I always say that too at the beginning. Just, go practice with people who are willing to, yeah, be part of that. And then eventually I did. But so, I still have learned. I'm still on a journey of learning. I think most of us are. Yes, do I have a lot of experience now? Absolutely, as I know Julie does too. We both have a lot of experience because we've done it for so long. So we know what works for us, what doesn't work for us. But it doesn't mean that I'm still not interested in learning more techniques or something like that. So it's an ever evolving journey. I mean, then it turned, of course, into other things where I have an interest in other spirit. I do. I think it's from when I was younger. I do have gone to homes, checked on spirit activity, and communicated with them. I've helped some transition to the light. Not all of them want to, but the ones that do are super grateful. Super easy for them. So silly, There's the light, don't hold back. But they love sometimes having a medium that's on the earth plane to be able to help them. Whereas I've been told this later, I've been educated by spirit, who tells me I'd rather I trust you more than I do those angels that are beckoning me, or maybe loved ones, because hey, I never believed in that stuff here, but I believe in you. You're right here with me. You're on the earth plane, right? So if you're telling me some things, then I'm more likely to believe you. I've had those experiences, and then not all of them are like that. Others are. I want to throw this in really quickly, Julie, if you don't mind. It's an interesting thing at the Winchester Mystery House when I went there. And I'll make this brief, not a long drawn out thing. I was able to go as a medium. They asked me to come in for a show. I've already put it on my social media if you're interested in checking that out. Anyway, the reason I'm bringing it up is I remember one spirit there. He's quite famous, and he is there. His name is Clyde, and he was in the ballroom with me, and we were over by the fireplace. And he's actually been seen stoking the fire, with people who are clairvoyant, actually seen him in there. I speak with him. I really, in my mind's eye, saw him, but I more, was relying on my clairaudience. But he was even telling me, I remember us talking or standing by the fireplace together, and he was saying, do you see up there? You look up there. Do you see up there? And I looked up. First, I'm just looking at what's up there, and trying to see. And then I said, well, what do you see, Clyde? And he said, do you see the angels? And I thought that was so cool. I was like, "Do you see the angels, Clyde?" He says, "Yeah." And I said, "What are they doing?" And basically, he was telling me how, yeah, they're letting them know they're there. Like, "Hey, you want anytime you want to come, Clyde, you can come on up here." But you know what? He wasn't interested. He's not interested. Simply, he's not interested. They all have their reasons. His is a lot of, he gets a lot of validation where he's at, as you can imagine.
I heard them say he's having too much fun doing what he's doing.
Exactly. And he's a little bit mischievous. I noticed that. And if you do watch the video, I'm only saying that, not trying to plug to watch the video, but it's kind of fun in the basement. I go in the basement with him. So he has a bit of a sense of humor. Um, but yeah, anyway, I share that because I just think it's really fascinating, the kind of the connection with spirit, how some want to go, some don't. So he popped in my head when I was speaking of that. So anyway, that's a lot of my journey. It's been a lot of practice over time. I became a certified hypnotherapist because I thought I've always been interested in hypnotherapy. And so I went and did that because not so much that I wanted to be practicing hypnotherapy, though I did do some of that. I haven't as much now, but I like to incorporate it, maybe, possibly have that tool into any sessions if it makes sense to do so. And I do think it's a valuable thing for sure. So here I am. Anyway, that's my story of how I got from there to here. Ever evolving, ever still learning.
And I will agree with a lot of that too, as am I. Thank you. I
Yes,
think it
thanks for
helps,
listening.
people who are, well, people who follow us to have either an interest in it. I mean, I'm sure people follow us for a variety of reasons, but some are sensitive themselves and want to hear, what our
Yes.
journey was, so that maybe that's something for them to pursue.
Yeah,
Um, I have a cat here because I have cats.
of course you do. It's
Um,
par for the course.
I heard I heard things from as far back as I can remember, but I always just thought everybody did that. I didn't think that was anything special. And I remember my sister's 6 years older than I am, so she was off and getting into the mysterious and the mystical, um, and started reading tarot as well. And I thought, well, if she can do it, I can do it, and blah blah blah. And so I started reading tarot too, but for myself, and my daughter was also very interested in it, and so I would read for her. And tarot is just an incredibly accurate counsel if you allow it to be. So it's just something that I was drawn to. Um, I mean, I don't know if I've told this story here. I actually tell it. I think I tell it in my first book and the second book I'm working on, which is that when my mother was, I must have been around 7 or 8 maybe, and she was at work and she had stopped to rub her hand. She was they called them secretaries at the time. That's how old I am. So she stopped to rub her hands, and out of my mouth said, "No, don't stop, because you need to work them, otherwise it'll hurt worse." And I was just like, okay, that sounds reasonable. Wasn't me. Did not come from me. I later realized, and really quite later, that my mother had arthritis in her hands. And so while movement is painful, you got to keep doing it. So that was their guidance to her. And I was just like, okay, makes sense. So anyway, my formal practice of this art didn't start until um, I had, I ignored it for a long time. I always knew things, and people would say to me, "How'd you know that?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I'm psychic." And they would laugh, and I'd be like, "Yeah." Anyway, you laugh, that's okay. So after I left corporate and trained to be a coach, I wanted additional training on, like Tammy. I went on and I learned NLP and hypnosis, and well, I learned NLP, and then I became a trainer of those things. And so it started a new journey for me in education of change work and deepening and self-awareness and all that. And I heard I need to take Reiki. I was not interested in the least in practicing Reiki. And I just knew that I had to take it. It was a doorway, which I realized later. And so when I got to level two, after our class that day, my partner and I went to go get something to eat at a little local hot dog place there near her house. And when we walked in, so mind you, I had just been in this incredible, spiritual awakening training. So I was wide open and walked into this hot dog place, and there was a father with his two children off to the side eating their hot dogs. And one of them had to go to the bathroom. And so he got up, and to get to the bathroom, he had to walk behind the counter. And as he walked behind the counter with her, I had this horrific vision of somebody being raped. And I didn't know if it had happened or if it was going to happen, because it was so abrupt and it was so visceral, and I'm feeling it now, and it was so horrifying to me. And I just turned to Chris, and I'm like, we have to go, we have to go, we have to go now. I can't be in here, we have to go. I was freaking
Wow.
out.
Mhm.
And she's like, well, can we get our hot dogs? And I'm like, yeah, I'll be outside. So when I told her what had happened, she said, yeah, that happened. And I'm like, oh, I cannot be having visions like this. Oh, no, 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 no. That cannot happen for me. And so that led to the pathway of protection and figuring all that.
Julie, if you don't mind me interrupting, so what do you mean that happened? It happened to her or just happened?
Thank you for asking.
Yeah,
So
I'm just curious how to.
it didn't happen to the father and the child. That event happened previously to somebody else. I think it was an employee, if I remember her telling me correctly.
Okay, I
Uh,
see.
that attack had happened in that place. Somebody attacked somebody behind. I think it was an employee, and so it had happened in the past. So what I was seeing was an echo, right, of the
Yeah.
past, and just the way he had got up to bring his daughters to go behind the counter, it must have been the right mix of energy to
Mhm.
elicit that echo.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it scared the living daylights out of me. But anyway, to try to get to the crux of this, and the short version of this, it led me to explore a lot more, and to learn how to protect myself. And then eventually, I still didn't really acknowledge my skill at this. Some people call it a gift. It's a skill, like anybody else has a skill, right? For something like art or music or whatever. And over time, I remember I was at a networking meeting one day, and I stood up and I said, "I'm coming out. I'm psychic."
Love
And he's like, "Oh, okay, great." I'm just like, well, it was big for me. Okay. So after my partner died, I had to recreate my business. I could not do what we were doing. We taught very intensive trainings together, and I had to go, and I felt really called to reigniting and really making work out of my skill. And so that's what I did in 2011. I became professional at it. And like Tammy says, you really do need to practice now. Now the way I get to it and the way other people get to it are different. I don't technically meditate. I meditate in the shower. That's a place where water running over me allows me to be open. But I don't even need to do that anymore. It's a shifting, it's just an opening and a shifting. And I still say a little prayer, because it's a formality for me. And then actually was so enjoyed this process that I went and became a certified teacher of the process I use. And eventually I decided not to do that anymore, to certify people, because I didn't like the way, just be honest, I didn't like the rules.
it.
And I was just like, I'll teach it, but I'm not going to certify it. And then I decided it's very intensive for me to do that, and I just decided to give that up altogether. So but I love talking about it and answering questions, right? That's what
Yeah,
we want to encourage people to do that.
absolutely.
So, and then Tammy and I met through East West Books, which is a metaphysical bookstore in Mountain View, and um, it's a very long story how that all changed. But as we departed that part of our lives, we connected, all of us readers connected in a group, and Tammy and I were just like, we just had a natural connection,
Mhm.
and here we are,
Yeah.
almost 2 years. I think the beginning of next year is 2 years now.
Probably it might even be is it 3? Because when did we? Yeah, I'd have to look back, Julie, but I want to say I thought we already had 2 years, so we
I
may be going
know,
on like 3 years, which is amazing.
I
I
know.
mean, time flies, as they say, but it's crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
And we need more followers. So ask those questions, share it, because it's not, we don't get paid to do this. We do it because we love doing it, but we'd like to share it with many, many more people. So
Yeah.
um, we're on a little bit of a time crunch here. So if you have specific questions, feel free to ask them.
Mhm.
Um, on our channel, we're happy to answer them. I'm happy to, you can email me as well. And if, or Tammy, I'm sure if you have other specific questions, but, you know, it's such, it, it's a profound honor to do, I feel like, what I do. And I'm sure you feel the same way. It's very
Absolutely.
much a spiritual connection.
Yeah.
And I know I don't technically see dead people with my eyes open. Everything for me is in my mind's eye, or I hear it, or I know it, or I feel it. It's all the clairs, right?
Mhm.
And my daughter, when she was younger, she could see things. And I'm like, that scared the Jesus out of me. So
Yeah. Yeah. I
I
know.
like, not, I mean, she was like, she could see things in the room or whatever. And I'm just like, yeah.
Right. Right. I think I've
Um,
only had like 2, maybe 3 times, something's hinting at 3, but 2 times that I actually visually saw something. I mean, one wasn't so much a spirit, but it was the spirit moving a curtain. I saw the curtain move, and when I, looked through it logically and all that, it definitely was. And then another time I did have a friend who's in spirit, who passed long ago, and I knew it was her, but it was a milky image, and I awoke up and I saw it in my room. Well, actually, then I did have 3. I had 2 in my room at one time, this many years ago again. At the beginning, a lot of when I was opening up and things like that. But yeah, I'm the same as Julie. I usually see it mind's eye and
I
clairs
think
and all that.
so, anecdotally, not that there's any research on this, and remind me, I want to share the story of my experience in Hawaii after Chris died. I don't, have I ever told you about that?
I don't know, but I might. That's okay anyway. It'd be
It's
fun to share that. Yeah.
freaked me no end. Actually, there were a couple of experiences that anyway. So we do have
Fun.
some questions from Daphne.
Oh, okay.
hopefully, hopefully we'll get to a little bit of them.
Yeah.
Um, so remind me to tell you the story of, next time we do this, of when I was in Hawaii and the experiences I had. This was after my partner had died, and I went back, and
Hmm.
it's way too long, ouch, to tell here. So um, so Daphne says the topic of time was particularly mind blowing. Okay, thank you. May I ask a couple of questions that are a bit all over the place? Daphne, we didn't forget you, and we love your questions that are
Yes.
all over the place. Are there harmful aliens that feed off the lower vibrations on Earth? So this is a very involved. So we'll just start with that. um,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
uh,
So one more time, Julie, would you read that for me?
so um, let me see if I can read the. Okay, she says, are there harmful aliens that feed off the lower vibrations on Earth? It seems to be a popular belief circling around that draconian aliens, or grays, which I'd never heard of, manipulate certain types of people to push them to do things that stem from fear, ego, and the destructive masculine energy. And there's a little bit more, but so the short answer is, the short question is, are there harmful, and she says aliens. I don't know that I would use that word. And then she says, likewise, are there good aliens around? So, we'll say harmful, malevolent energies and benevolent energies that support. And the short answer to that is both. So,
Yeah. I get that there are. They do come and go, is what I just hear. They come and go in our vibration, in our world, in our atmosphere, learning, ever learning, developing, wondering. Now, do they impress guides? Do these, I'll say extraterrestrials, ETs, aliens, do any of them manipulate human beings on the planet? No, not necessarily manipulate. It's more of an agreement, if anything. If there is any of that behavior going on, there is some sort of agreement to that. Not unlike any spirit that might be a bit of an attachment to somebody. That person has to have, an agreement in a sense to allow that, or to be very open in a way that, that's happening. So what I feel like is, I'll call them ETs, aliens, ETs. They are around us. They do come and go, is what I just keep getting. But, I often get that for spirit that comes, they come and go, right? Kind of out of our space. I'm not, okay. So would you say, guys, there's any that are of a lower vibration that really feed on, causing havoc and wreaking havoc and being a problem? They say really not that many that we see. There are some that have more of that sort of vibration that we can tell. What about the opposite ones that are really, that have a higher vibration of love and bring that to the planet? Yes, absolutely. There are those that are trying to work with the planet to help the planet, and as you might call it, to save the planet. They do their part in energy work, healing, also to let others know that they're around, and to give advice. Now, they just show me the word scientists. So they may be tapping in a lot and working with the scientists of our world. Are these scientists aware of it? Not necessarily, but then again, they may be. They just don't know what to call it. They may have they said the drop-ins that are encouraging them to look at things a certain way, or to do things a certain way. So yes, there are other life forms that are more advanced than ours. This is their words. That are trying to help our planet. Those are the ones we like to put our attention on more than any that aren't. There are some that have a lower, they've gone by the wayside, just like people can, gone down the bad path, wrong path, a negative path. And anyway, so that's kind of in a nutshell what I'm getting. I know this could be a big topic, but how about you, Julie?
Yeah, I think it is. I think we're going to come back to it.
Yeah.
So what they were saying to me is that so the universe is made up of energy and vibration, and just like anything, there are certain vibrations and energies that are going to be drawn and attach or attract themselves to others. Maybe I'll go this way. And so again, the answer is yes to both, because it just depends on the level. And this is a much more involved question. And gee, Daphne, I'm sorry that we didn't get to it last time and that we can't fully get to it this time. So we're gonna revisit this, and it will be our top priority for next time, even before the Hawaii story. But I do want to, because it's a great question. It's a great question. And there's a lot to it. They're telling me there's really a lot more that we'd like to say about it. And I do just want to say one other thing here. She says, in regards to the recession and interest rates continuing to rise, will the Bay Area housing bubble pop? If there is, how long will it last? So again, we're going to see if we can get to that next time. What I got and have consistently received is that there's going to be a period of prosperity for us as we enter the new year. You've already seen a little bit of it in terms of finances. Sometimes that's a very vague, big, overarching question. So we'll see how much deeper we can go with that. And there's a lot to that too. Oh, so I guess a tease for next time, huh? Sorry
Yeah.
about yeah,
Okay.
lots of good stuff though.
Yes.
Yeah, keep asking those questions. We love them. And if you're on your own new intuitive path and seeing what's out there for you in connection with what you don't see, what's in the non-physical, um, enjoy the journey. It can be scary at times. I mean, I retreated for a year after I had that experience. I'm like, I got black tourmaline. I wore it around my neck. I was just like, I'm not having any part of this. And so yeah, I don't worry about that at all, and haven't for years anymore. And that's a story
Right.
I'll talk about too.
Yeah.
So,
It's all good now, and that comes with experience, I think, feeling more comfortable and all that good stuff. But yeah.
so until next time, keep those questions coming. We love it. We love you. We appreciate your questions, and we have to run, but thanks for your support of Two Psychic Moms. We are both moms, furry and human,
Right.
and we will see you next time.
Okay. Look forward to it. Thank you, everybody.